So for anybody who's been following along, you see an uptick recently in anti-trans arguments, now even anti-gay arguments. Many people thought, hey, we got over the hump with gay rights, and this is a fight that Republicans are sort of backing off on because they know they lost it. Over 70% of the country wants gay marriage to be legal. No. The second they saw an opportunity, they said, full court press, let's show them how anti-gay rights we are and anti-gay marriage we are. And so that's how you have a situation where 157 Republicans in the House voted against gay marriage. What happened was, I think the right got out over their skis after the whole trans discourse. They felt like they were winning the culture war on the trans front, going after the LGBTQ community, calling them, groomers, going after teachers and stuff like that. They thought they had a winner there, and so they leaned into it. And it sort of led to this avalanche of social conservatism breaking through again. Well, now we've reached the logical endpoint of that social conservatism. This is in WFLA. Utah Senator Mike Lee proposes bill to ban internet porn in the U.S. It is all part of the same agenda. This is all part of the same agenda. The anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ. This is what this is all part of. Josh Hawley just gave a speech at one of these right-wing conferences and took a shot at porn himself. Here's what they say. Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee has proposed legislation to officially define obscenity as it relates to free speech in a move that would essentially make internet pornography illegal in the United States. For legal purposes, obscenity is one of few types of speech not protected by the First Amendment and blocked from interstate or foreign transmission by current federal law. According to a one-page explanation by the Utah senator, the new legislation would modify the Miller test, a U.S. Supreme Court precedent from 1973, which set a way of defining material as sexual or obscene content affecting the prurient interest, hard word, precedent by an earlier SCOTUS ruling. Prurient means that something either has or encourages an excessive interest in sexual matters. The Miller test used ruled that if the average American would find content that appeals to the prurient interest, it is considered obscene. When announcing his bill, Lee said SCOTUS has struggled to define obscenity as it relates to free speech, and that the internet presented serious challenges to the Miller test. So let me pause here to say, the real precedent in this country when it comes to obscenity is we know it when we see it. That's the real standard. Now, of course, there's problems with that. It's mega vague, right? Like, oh, we know it when we see it. But what Bob or Dave thinks is obscene, maybe I don't. And you could have 1,000 different standards with 1,000 different people. But the interpretation of case law to this point, when it comes to stuff like pornography, is basically let it go as long as it's not obviously illegal and wrong. Okay? He wants to change that. Lee's proposed legislation, the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act, would use federal free speech guidelines to make content that, quote, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest in nudity, sex, or excretion, or depicts, describes, or represents actual or simulated sexual acts with the objective intent to arouse, titillate, or gratify the sexual desires of a person, or when, quote, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value as obscene. Those specific definitions were set by the Miller test's definition of obscene speech. While the Miller test included the legal guide of sexual conduct specifically defined by the applicable state law, Lee's proposal would federally codify the Miller test as it relates to internet materials and content. In other words, the logical result of what he wants implemented would ban internet porn. Because I want to read it again. Here. Taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest in nudity, sex, or excretion. Depicts, describes, or represents actual or simulated sex acts with the objective intent to arouse, titillate, or gratify the sexual desires of a person. He wants that banned. He wants that gone. Incredible. According to his one-page explanation of the proposal, it would, quote, strengthen the existing general prohibition on obscenity. Strengthen the prohibition on obscenity. In other words, Mike Lee defines standard porn as obscene, and he wants to ban that. found in the U.S. Communications Act of 1934 to take out the intent requirement of the ban on transmitting obscene materials for purposes of abuse, threats, or harassment. Doing so would mean transmitting any of these types of materials online would qualify as obscene, since the specificity of purpose would be removed. The full text of the bill, published by Lee, includes types of content that the new guidelines would apply to. Those types of content include pictures, images, graphic image files, film, videotapes, other visual depictions. In terms of what Lee would define as obscene, the bill lists the following actions, if intended to arouse, titillate, or gratify the sexual desires of a person. So, actual sex acts or simulated sex acts, actual or simulated sexual contact, actual or simulated normal or perverted sexual acts, lewd exhibition of genitals, anything that lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Put simply, the bill would remove First Amendment protections from and ban the distribution of adult materials in the whole of the U.S. However, the new obscenity definition included in Lee's proposal, that the material simply arouses, titillates, or gratifies someone's sexual desires, is bluntly broad. As written, the definition applies to any and all pornographic material, even if performed by and marketed to and transmitted or distributed solely by adults to adults in the United States. So you know who's coming out and arguing against this? All the free speech groups. Because this is, obviously, pornography falls under the content of free speech. The Free Speech Coalition, an adult industry advocacy nonprofit, spoke with Vice News, criticized Lee's legislation as yet another attempt by conservatives to censor speech and expression about sex. FSC Director of Public Affairs Mike Stable told Vice that the bill was, quote, a threat to those working in the adult industry, particularly to their business, to their livelihood, and to their community. Stable said the legislation was unlikely to pass in Congress, but is a sign of a very reactionary cultural movement. That's exactly right. Look, make no mistake about it. If these people had their way, they would ban porn. They would ban porn. There's been an uptick even just among like conservative commentators in anti-pornography, anti-masturbation stuff. You know, there was that no fap movement, and now they have some people who are figureheads, who are popular content creators. There is, again, an increase in social conservatism now. Uber religiosity, anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-porn stuff. And of course, it's incredibly ironic because these are the same people who will pretend like they are pro-freedom. Like that's one of the defining characteristics of their politics. Is I want to live and let live. I want people to do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody else. Well, you couldn't get a clearer example of somebody doing what they want to do without hurting anybody else. Somebody who watches porn or jerks off or whatever the fuck. We already have a situation where the things that should be illegal are illegal. Like child porn, for example, right? Nobody's in favor of that being legal. But when you talk about consensual adults doing the porn and watching the porn, like some preposterously high percentage of internet usage is just porn. And these people don't want that. These people want to ban that. That is their ideal. Keep that in mind. Remember that. That's super important. Because again, as soon as people know the right-wing agenda on social issues, they will run away at 1,000 miles an hour. You know, some people were getting hooked in with the anti-trans arguments, like, oh yeah, I don't want my kid being taught that, you know, hey, maybe your kid who's a boy wants to be a girl. Maybe their teacher should let them know about that, bro. Hey man, hands off my kid. There are probably some people who are getting hooked in on that, but then in the next week when all of a sudden these people are arguing that gay marriage shouldn't even exist anymore, it's like, oh, I see what the real agenda was all along. And now you see the same thing on the porn front. This dude wants to ban porn. From my cold, dead hands, bitch. And from your cold, dead hands. Or shall we say from our warm hands? Warm because people are jacking off? Anyway, all right, this got weird. But you guys get the gist of it. Mike Lee, get the fuck out of everybody's private life. This is none of your goddamn business. And look, at the core of a lot of this social conservatism is just uber religiosity that they barely try to hide. Everybody take their fundamentalist religion, take their evangelical Christianity, shove it up your ass. You want to practice it on your own? Be my guest. But you have no right or ability to impose this on other people. And they should be honest and tell you, yes, what we're pushing for is an anti-First Amendment agenda. Because what they want to do is fundamentally reinterpret the First Amendment to say, well, this stuff doesn't count. No, it does. And it should. And again, it's freedom. It's one of the few things that, in the U.S., we've kind of solidly been on the right side of it. You know what I'm saying? Like the legality and easy availability of pornography. Because certainly we had the war on drugs, and like people willingly putting a substance in their body has become this big scandal, and people get locked up for it and locked up for selling drugs and all this stuff. But this has been a social freedom that we've had for a very long time. And now they want to wage war on that too. And now this motherfucker's proposing a bill about it. Hell no. Piss off. This is crazy. All right, guys. That's the show. I love you all very much. Thanks for listening. Guys, if you enjoy the show, you can click the like button on the video. You can click the subscribe button. If you click that little bell notification thing, then every time a video drops, you'll know right away. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys do that as well. We're on the path to 1 million subscribers. We're slowly climbing. We just hit 1 billion views the other day. I'm flattered by that. When we hit 1 million subs, I'm going to do a special stream. So we'll probably do like a long stream, and we'll celebrate it and have some fun. And yeah, if you guys, like the show, you want to listen to it on any of the podcasting platforms, it's available on Spotify and others, so you guys could check that out. And of course, a massive thank you, as always, to everybody who supports the show on Patreon, supports Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. We couldn't do it without you guys. And look, I'm not going to lie to you, I felt quite a bit of pride when all these, these stories were coming out about all these products that other YouTubers are hawking, and the products are like total scams. The Kamikoto knives thing, and the established titles thing, and there's all these exposés that these things are garbage and people are hawking it. And being that I never have any conversation ever with an advertiser, I was able to sort of be like, see, there's a reason why I act the way I act, right? I don't want to be in bed with any advertisers or corporations. I just want to give you guys the news and the information. And if you want to tip me along the way, I greatly appreciate it. So no need for me to work with companies. No need for me to taint the show and make it impure. So anyway, I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.